Welcome to The Productive Attorney. My name is Jim Zaid, I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about business plans. Why you need them, what they have, what's in it for you as an attorney. As always at The Productive Attorney, what we're trying to do is to make you as a lawyer more productive so you can work to live as opposed to live to work. I know that's a corny saying, but it's really what we all want to do and we're trying to do. And so, as I normally do, I start out these podcasts with either a war story or something that's current event that's impacting what we're going to talk about in the subject. And what I want to talk about now is a current event that I'll go into and do a complete podcast on. But right now, the legal industry has never had a disruption like it goes as far back as the typewriters. Typewriters were around, they got disrupted by word processors. The medical industry has been disrupted when people came in and started different levels of management and different insurance plans, and you had to go through HMOs and PPOs, and doctors in some cases became employees as opposed to owning their own practices, and that disrupted the medical world. We've never had that in the law world, and one of the primary reasons we've never had that is because lawyers have always been the only ones that can own a law firm. Non-lawyers have never been able to own a law firm, which means that those who come in with a profit incentive other than the lawyers themselves haven't been allowed to own law firms. And so in the case of lawyers, we have these ethical rules, and we're bound by these ethical rules, and that ethical rule is so ingrained in us, and we don't want to lose our license, that we typically will defer to clients, defer to what's in the best interest of the client, as opposed to what's in the best interest of us monetarily. The issue has always been, and the thought has always been, if non-lawyers own law firms, then what will happen is the interest of making money will trump the interest of the client. And so the rules have always stayed in place. Well, that's changing. Utah had what they call a regulatory sandbox in which they discuss non-lawyers owning law firms. But now Arizona has, in 2020, has officially approved it, and now there are non-lawyers owning law firms. There was a big play just made by LegalZoom. LegalZoom had an IPO, I believe, this summer. Their market capitalization, how much they're worth, is $7 billion with a B. They're coming into Arizona full throttle. They just announced a branding membership with the NBA for $6 million. They are going in, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to sweep up as much legal business as possible. They'll come in and do contract reviews for $100. They'll come in and do DWIs for $150. They're going to undercut the prices of what lawyers do everywhere. And it's not just Arizona. California is on its way to approving it. Florida is currently considering it. Very soon, it's going to be the rule rather than the exception that non-lawyers can own law firms. And what's going to happen is we as attorneys are going to have to become much more efficient as what we do. We're going to have competition coming from every single direction. And in order to do that, you have to be organized, you have to be efficient, you have to be productive. And one of the ways to be organized, efficient, and productive is to have a business plan. Why do you need a business plan? Most lawyers I know don't have one. They've never put pen to paper. They just say it's not worth the time. I'm technically strong as an attorney. I have enough business. I'm fine. I don't need a business plan going forward. My opinion is if you get a business plan, you'll be much more efficient. You'll make much more money, and you'll have much more free time. When you put pen to paper, and when you put down your goals, and when you put down your plan, it forces you to think about it, and it solidifies in your mind the direction that you're going and the direction that you want to take your business. It is a roadmap, and that's one of the reasons why you want to have a business plan, is for the roadmap. The second is milestones. You know, things are just an idea, or I will just do something until you put a deadline or a milestone on them. And then suddenly you have to accomplish something by a certain date. And we as lawyers know that better than anybody else. When the court puts a deadline on something, we get it done. No matter how much a pain in the butt it is, we get it done. In a business plan, say for example on a marketing strategy, if you give yourself a deadline, I'm going to do this marketing task by this date, and you have to reach it, that tends to make you get to that goal quicker if you have a written milestone. A lot of times people, especially starting out, have an idea. I want to be an attorney and I want to do this type of work. But it's not really a business until you sit down, put pen to paper, and map out the marketing and the financials and all the things that it takes to run a business, and to talk about some of the softer stuff that we talked about in the earlier podcasts. What are your core values? What's your mission? Why? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to be an attorney? Why do you want to do this practice? Why do you want this area? And this business plan, it doesn't just go for solo practitioners or small firms. This goes for everybody. I'm talking big law as well. If you're in big law and you have a practice group or you have a little niche that you've carved out in your firm, that's a business within a business. That's how you make your living, is by going ahead and generating business in that particular practice area, getting clients to come to you, doing good work for them, and turning around and then going and selling to the rest of the partnership why your value is what it is and why you should be paid what you should be paid. Each lawyer should have their own business plan if they're out practicing law. The other thing that, another reason for a business plan is marketing. We're going to do, next podcast is just on marketing 101, the very basics. As we get deeper into these podcasts, we'll do deeper dives into different areas of marketing that are online, offline, but you have to set up and say, I'm going to do these things to market my business. And that's where the milestones come in. Marketing is something, if you're busy, you have the work, you're making money, you put to the back burner. This podcast has been on my marketing plan for over a year. And I'm now on my third podcast. I should have started 12 months ago, but I gave myself a deadline. By the end of 2021, I was going to start recording and I was going to start getting it out there. If I didn't have that deadline, I wouldn't have done it. Another thing is finance, money. You have to figure out what your revenue is going to be, what your expenses are going to be, what your net profit is going to be. If you're in a bigger firm, you have to figure out what kind of gross revenue you want and how much you want to ask from the firm for your compensation, either as an associate or partner or whatever level that you are. Another smaller reason for a business plan would be a loan. If you need to have a loan, you can go in and show them that here's my business plan, here's what I'm going forward with. This gives you an idea of what I want. I will tell you that a business plan itself typically doesn't get a loan. They want dollars backing it, they want collateral, they want a cosigner. But it sure shows the bank or whatever person or area is giving you a loan that you are out there and you are really going forward with your business and you put a lot of thought into it. So what do you put in a business plan? A business plan can be very flexible. It's now almost cliche, but there are multiple examples of business plans on cocktail napkins. It's so cliche that now when firms open their own firm, they'll have a huge cocktail napkin with a rough sketch of what their business is going to be at the opening. But the idea behind that is that with just a general idea of what you're going to do, that can help. It's in writing, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Other businesses, including lawyers, have really meticulously detailed business plans. I'll tell you that in the law class that I teach, we do a business plan at the end of the class. That's the student's final project. I've seen over 100 business plans in the 5 years that I've been teaching over at Texas A&M. And I've seen good, I've seen bad, I've seen meticulously detailed, and I've seen general business plans. The one thing I do ask for students is I don't want them long for the sake of being long, and I want them to match your core values and your personality. If you're creative, if that's something you are, and there's not a lot of creative lawyers, but if you're creative, I want to see a creative business plan. If you are somebody who's in transactional work and meticulously detail things, I want to see that in your business plan. I do want to see pictures. That's just me. I want to see who's running the business, who's the person behind the business. But if you can, have it match your personality. So typically, I'll walk through a typical business plan. Eventually, on my website, theproductiveattorney.com, I will go ahead and have examples of business plans. I'll probably have them on there by the time this broadcasts, but I'll give you typically what you put in there. Part one of a business plan, you have an executive summary. That contains a mission statement. Some people call it a vision statement. Your mission statement should be short, and it should reflect your core values and your business goals. That's what you need to have in the beginning. Some people put what they call SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, threats. They do an analysis of that. You can put that in if you want. That's kind of overkill. Part two is similar to part one, except you need to do in part two, give a company description. So your mission, let's say your mission is to do low bono work in South Texas. You are a social justice warrior. That's something that's super important to you. So you want to go and give back to the community, and you want to do it so you can at least make a living, but you don't need to make millions of dollars. So that's your mission statement, to create a low bono law firm in South Texas that serves the community. But your description of your company needs to tell them what kind of services you're going to provide. Our law firm is going to provide simple wills, landlord-tenant information, immigration information, consumer information. You have to put in your company description what exactly it is you're going to provide. What is it, the services that you're going to provide for the community? Part three is a market analysis, and typically that gets into competitors. So what other competitors are out there? Who's doing the same thing that you're doing? So for example, in my world, I do personal injury, and on the plaintiff side. And there are a lot of people who do personal injury in just about every community. Now, Fort Worth, Texas, where I'm from, is conservative, and the juries are conservative. As a result, making a big living here, making lots and lots of money, can be difficult with our juries. You go 30 miles to the east to Dallas, which is a little more liberal, and you have a lot more personal injuries and a lot more competition. So you just have to do that analysis and see if that's where you want to be. Part four sets out exactly the services you're going to provide. For example, I'll just give you my firm. We do really three areas of the law. One is plaintiff's personal injury work. The second area of the law is first-party insurance. So we represent policyholders against insurance companies for things like storm damage or broken pipes or anything where the insurance company should have paid but haven't paid. And then the third thing we do is a little bit of smattering of employment law. I've done it and mostly for plaintiffs, but I'll do review severance agreements, non-compete agreements, help people out as they go through that. So that's the services we provide. You need to have that in your business plan and kind of settle on where you want to be. Part five is marketing. How are you going to get your clients? And in it, you have to have your marketing plan. And to me, again, we'll talk about this in a separate podcast, but to me, this is where the most detail has to come, and this is where the milestones have to come. I have seen, again, in the 100 students, I've seen some excellent marketing plans where they talk about what they're going to do. I've seen marketing plans that are overly ambitious. They think that they're going to rule the world, and they could not possibly serve clients and do all the marketing that they say they're going to do. So you have to be realistic as to the marketing that you're going to do. And part six is your financials. I like to have detailed financials for a year. So for example, this is 2021. So in 2022, I would like to see an Excel spreadsheet. On the top line, the predicted revenues that you're going to have for 2022. And then below that, you have your expenses, and you break down your expenses that you're going to have in 2022 and the net income that you're going to receive. New lawyers starting out, the first 6 months, you're probably not going to make a whole lot of money. So you have to reflect that in your financials, and you have to be ready for that when it comes to being able to get your firm up and running and have capital in which to live, to have shelter and food, etc. Occasionally, especially with new students, I like a resume at the end. That always would give a little more oomph to your business plan, but for older attorneys who have done this, or attorneys who've done this for a long time, you may just take the website page that you have at your current firm, but somewhere there's something written as to what you've been doing. I will give you some examples of issues that I've had with business plans, having done this so much. I see a lot of technical issues where there's a lot of typos, a lot of spelling, a lot of font issues. I've had business plans with like 6 different fonts, grammar, that sort of thing. If you're doing just a business plan for yourself, that's not as big of a problem. But if someone else is going to look at it, or you're going to operate off it, then I would check into the technical issues. And then the other problem I have with business plans a lot of times is marketing plans aren't specific enough. They don't have specific deadlines, and you really need to go into all aspects, both your branding side, which is just the awareness of your firm, and then the specific side of who you're going to ask and how you're going to ask them. There are more issues. I want more specific expenses. I always give the example of a copier lease. No one understands how a copier lease is similar to a car lease. You end up paying about anywhere from $200 to $300 a month for a copier, and it's good for 3 years. That's what you can buy a car for, or lease a car for. And so you really have to know what you're doing. I don't recommend buying a copier. I made that mistake one time. But go ahead and figure out what that's going to be. Are you going to work from home? Are you going to have an office? That sort of thing. And then the other issue that I have a lot of problem with is when people just go in and make it too generic. They go off the internet and take the usual gavel and scales of justice, and take the usual language you see on every lawyer's website and just make it filler. That's not good. That's not doing anybody good. It's just making work. You got to really sit down and be specific. And then ultimately what I look for is, will the plan work? Is it going to work? Are you going to go ahead and make a living? I've had meetings with students. I meet with about half of my students, and I tell some of them, this just isn't going to work. And here's why this plan isn't going to work. Go from there. You can get fancier. You can have a logo. You can have a slogan, other things you can do. But that's the basics of a business plan. So, get a business plan. Sit down. Work on it. Maybe if you're into sports, do it while you're watching a sporting event. If there's anything you're doing where you have the ability to have some more time with your mind while you're doing something else, business plan is something that can fill that gap. It doesn't have to be incredibly taxing. It's just something you got to sit down and do. So I highly recommend it. Thanks for listening. Next podcast we have is Marketing 101. Thank you.